So one day, there was this man, and he was walking through a zoo, and he was looking at all the animals. He was admiring all these animals, and eventually he walked up to the elephants. He walked into the elephants' holding area, and he realized these huge, massive creatures have one little rope tying them down into their place. These one little ropes holding them in captivity. So he's just in awe, thinking about how these huge elephants, won't break this rope. So he walks up to the elephant trainer and he asks, why these elephants won't break these little ropes that's holding them. And the guy says, well, when these elephants were young, they weren't strong enough to break these ropes. So they grew up their whole life believing that they couldn't break these ropes. So these ropes still hold them even though they can break these ropes just by trying a little harder than what they do. So this story is relevant today because people let their past define them. They let things that happened when they're children define them. They let things that people call them define them their whole lives. And they never want to break free of it. They let things that happen that don't even matter anymore define who they are. And we can't let that happen because in my life I've been through a lot of things. Both of my parents were drug addicts when I was growing up. I went through CPS. I went to foster homes. I went through all these things. And when I was little, I let this stuff define who I was. I let this stuff control me. All these things that happened to me, I let it control me. And then once I realized that I can't let it control me and I stopped letting that happen, that's why I'm here today. Because when I realized I have to change who I am and what people are calling me isn't who I really am, I changed my life, right? But I've come to talk to you all about how we can't live in the past because we can't let the past things be who we are. Because just because people call us that and just because that's what happened when we were younger doesn't mean that's who we are. And because we have to focus on what's left in life for us to accomplish. We have to focus on the future. We have to focus on what we're planning to do in life. We can't let what happened to us when we were young be who we are. So this is important to me because all the stuff that happened to me as a child, all the stuff that went in my life, and I don't want people to have the same problems that I went through. So I want to be able to share this message so y'all will understand it. But one of the main reasons is we need to focus on what we have left and not dwell on the past. We need to focus on what we have left, and so we don't focus on the past. We got to focus on our futures. Because if we live in the past, we're never going to change. We can't change if we're focused on stuff that happened to us. For example, Michael Jordan, arguably one of the best basketball players to ever step on the court. Well, his high school freshman year, he got cut from the basketball team. He didn't make the team. And the coach told him he wasn't good enough and that he shouldn't play basketball. But if he just practices, he might be able to make the team next year. But Michael Jordan went home and he didn't let what the coach say affect him. Just because the coach said he wasn't good enough, he didn't let that define him. He went home and he practiced. He busted his butt and to be who he is today. And if he let that define him, no one would know who he is. If he let that define him, he wouldn't be arguably the best basketball player of all time. He wouldn't have his own shoe brand. He wouldn't have all the stuff. He wouldn't be a billionaire. But most importantly, he wouldn't be significant. No one would know who he is if he would have let that stuff define him. If he would have let the coach tell him that he wasn't good enough, define who he was, no one would know who he is. He wouldn't be significant. Which leads to my next point. You're never going to do anything of significance in your life if you live in the past. For example, Thomas Edison. If y'all don't know who Thomas Edison is, he invented the light bulb. All these lights in here is because Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, right? But when Thomas Edison, when he was trying to do all this stuff, he failed 10,000 times. He has a quote saying that he failed 10,000 times, but all he had was that one time that worked. The one time that worked. But if he would have focused on all the times that it didn't work, if he would have let all that stop him from keep trying, he would have never invented the light bulb. He would have only been known as the guy who failed. But since he didn't let it affect him, he kept pushing forward. He's the guy credited with inventing the light bulb. He is like arguably one of the smartest guys of all time, but he failed 10,000 times first. He didn't let any of those times define who he is. So when I was researching this speech, I found a quote online. It says, although the past is an important part of our lives, it is in the present and in the future where our capacity to make transformations is settled. We are not the sum of our past. We must concentrate on living in the present. I found that on exploringyourmind.com. But guys, we are not the sum of our past. Just because it happened to us, it happened. It's in the past. We must concentrate on fixing the future. We must concentrate on advancing in life. We can't let what happened to us as children define us like so many people do. We can't let it define us. Just because it was a bad day doesn't make it your last day. Every day you wake up and you can change what happened. You can change who you are. It's up to you. It's your mind power, and it's up to us to change it. But all this stuff is relevant today because there's people who let all this stuff affect them. Every day you walk in the halls and you see people with their heads down who are letting things that happen to them as children define who they are. just because their parents were deaf. They let that define who they are. Just because it happened to them, they let everyone tell them who they are because of the stuff they went through. When in reality, that's not them. They have to break out of it. But the solution, how we break free from our past is, it's easy, really. You got to move forward and never look back. You can't look back on what happened to you. So you can't change it. Your past is unchangeable. It's unchangeable. So we can't focus on our past. We have to move forward. And horses, when they race, they wear these blinders, right? And everyone thinks they wear blinders so they'll stay in the lane. But when I researched it a little bit, in horses, they wear their blinders so that they can't see the horses beside them. They can't look back and see the horses behind them. Because if they see the horses behind them and beside them, when they're looking around, they'll miss a step and they'll fall. They'll lose their race because they're worried about all the stuff that happened behind them. Guys, in our life, we have to put on these blinders. We can't let what happened behind us affect us anymore. Because if we are, we're going to lose the race and we're going to fall. That's going to be it. So we can't be like the elephant. We can't let the same small rope that tied us down forever stay tying us down. It's time to break the rope. Mic drop.